Tango to the top, baby.
IGK, this crazy.
Hey, yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed, and like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. With that being said, you guys been showing my videos a lot of love, man. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. I appreciate everybody calling me the next 1090 Jake. That is a compliment. I'm working hard. I'm doing what I can, doing on my research. I feel like I'm getting older every time I watch a new video because my eyes are just sinking into my eye sockets. But I'm doing this for you guys' entertainment. So let's get into this next video. With that being said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, always leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Check the links in the description for the Apple and Spotify music. Run up my streams, Tales from the Hood, man. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys supporting my music and supporting my channel. Much appreciated, and thank you for tuning in. Now, time and time again, everybody was asking me to do Tango Blast. Now, mind you, I've done a lot of prison time, met a lot of people. So sometimes when I go live and you guys ask me about certain particular individuals or from videos, like I can only remember like people I was involved with, if I have a story behind them, if I interact with them. So I'm sorry if I don't meet all the criteria and expectations of my strict audience. But let's get into this one. Everybody asked about Tango Blast and if I ever ran into anybody from Texas. No, I haven't. I haven't even been to the state of Texas. I wish I can go to the state of Texas. That'd be all right. But I watched a lot of videos when it comes to different prison gangs that were part of Texas, the Texas culture. I do my best to learn it. I always wanted to know how the Mexican Mafia got into the Arizona and created the Arizona Mafia and the Texas Mexican Mafia. I'm going to learn that, and I'm going to do videos on that. But we're talking about Texas Blast. Now, obviously, I can sit here and recite a lot of information that's already been available to the public. But this is my general understanding and my interpretation of this gang. It's kind of hard to identify them as a prison gang because a lot of Tango Blast members always identify themselves that it's not a gang. It's a street gang. It's a clique that just happens to be one of the most powerful ones in the Texas prison system. But we're talking about a clique that started off in the beginning. 20 members who band together for protection against other prison gangs. So isn't that a similar story, a similar narrative and history behind why gangs get started within the penal system or on the streets? Gangs always seem to formulate and go up against gangs that they were being oppressed by. These individuals have the same story as any other prison gang that I've heard of. That's why I don't see nothing wrong to an extent of why gangs formulate and they cultivate in prison and in society. It's because one came up with an idea to create a gang and oppress somebody else and abuse somebody else and extort somebody else and hurt somebody else. And then another gang sprouts, and then you have the same story. And it's been a repeated story. And you know how they always say history always repeats itself. So we're talking about 20 members, all from the state of Texas, but from 3 different locations. We're talking about like Fort something, I forgot what it was, Austin, Dallas, and Houston, something like that. But 3 different cities in the state of Texas, all creating a crown. The crown meaning that all these 3 individuals came together and started identifying themselves as Houston. That's clever. From Houston. He's a Houston. So while they're in the Texas prison system, obviously they formed a loose alliance with Texas Syndicate. Everybody's heard about Texas Syndicate. That's one of the most dangerous gangs that was in the state of Texas prisons. Their extortion and their power is ruthless, just like the Mexican Mafia and any other prison gang that's formulated that's mafia-based and organized under a mafia structure. Well, obviously, these members began getting used. While they were identifying themselves as Houston and started working, their numbers were growing from these particular cities in which formulated the gang. Obviously, we started working for the Texas Syndicate, who ran the prisons, who ran the prison drugs trade, who pretty much ran everything. And same story. Being abused, being oppressed, being just forced to do what they wanted them to do. So eventually, they got tired of it. Went against the Texas Syndicate, created another war, and began recruiting in numbers not only on the streets, but in the penal system. After this war on power and this war of separation, They wound up changing the name to Tango Blast. And obviously, the gang was decentralized, which made it a lot more harder for, law enforcement and the State Department to actually monitor and stop the growth of this gang, because everybody believed in what they stood for and what they were doing. They were tired of being abused and answering to other prison gangs. Does that sound coincidental? Does that sound like a lot of the SNY gangs? Doesn't that sound like what the Bulldogs did? They fought for their independence. And that's the moral of the story when it comes to a lot of these prison gangs that are formulating against other prison gangs. It's always about finding that independence. See, Tango Blast doesn't have a hierarchy. Have no shot callers. They have no leaders. They're all just soldiers. Soldiers that were tired of being foot soldiers to the next man. I mean, who really wants to be told what to do, when to do, and how to do it every day by the man that you never even met, that you don't care to know? So that's how this gang formulated. And they reached up to 14,000 members on the streets and in the penal system. And with these 14,000 members, obviously it saturated the streets of Texas, all cities, different cities. The city you were from is how you identified what particular Tango Blast you really were. And obviously throughout time, as the members grew and they terrorized the community, the acronym was clever, but obviously other people from society are going to look at it like it's petty. But Tango standing for Together Against Negative Gang Organizations. Now think about it. On the basis of this acronym, that sounds very intelligent, and it pretty much gives the ideology of why they're fighting for their independence and what they stand for and who they stand against. Organized crime, organizations in the penal system who, no matter what prison you're at, whatever location you're at, whatever gang's there's always that big organization who has power in numbers and has become powerful because, obviously they've spent their whole lives in jail accumulating this power. These kind of organizations always have a habit and tendency to always abuse people who they believe are less than, who are lower than them. So I don't think any of these big organizations be shifting blame to nobody else other than themselves on why these other groups, these other segments, these other cliques are formulated and go against them and cause a bigger war. But overall, it sounds the same. Tejanos killing Tejanos in the penal system. And obviously, when the numbers grew, the best identifying, remark to identify one another, if you ain't blasting, you ain't lasting. So pretty much, bro, you want to enter this group after you get jumped in, after you do your 14 days probation, after they do the background check to make sure you do this and you do that, and they monitor you, see how you conduct yourself. I mean, I personally don't think 14 days is enough. I mean, a person can act like a straight and narrow. He can act like a product of a civilian. Upstanding civilian, and then after the 14 days, like, bro, I'm gonna slam all this dope, and I'm gonna go probably hook up with this dude later on. 14 days isn't enough, but if you ask me, but that's pretty much their policy. These individuals don't believe in any form of hierarchy. They don't want to play by the rules. They don't want a leader. They just want to come together and band together as homies that look out for each other. And with their strength and their numbers, a lot of the stories that I've been hearing is like these guys are taking over facilities, working in so many different departments where they're allowed to look out for one another and became strong through their acts of violence. They've been putting it down. They've been going at it with cribs. It's just their level of violence that they displayed without the hierarchy. They prefer chaos over order. It's the same thing as what the Bulldogs did. All they care about is violence. What they do in their demonstrations against these organizations is necessary. And that's how they were able to separate themselves for the rest of these organizations within the Texas prison system. But if you think about it, their lack of structure and their lack of hierarchy is what made them so big. So this is a prime example of why prison organizations and hierarchies work in some sense. But just like in the California state prisons, these big hierarchies, these big organizations have a lot more threatening oppositions that they're faced with. Just like in the Texas prison system when the Tango Blast went at it with the Texas Syndicate. It's this kind of form of leadership and abuse of power and abusive leadership positions is what causes people to rebel. It's what causes people to formulate these other oppressive gangs. And these oppressive gangs oftentimes outnumber different organizations and become more powerful. It's because of their lack of structure is why everybody else is outnumbered by these individuals, because people are going to gravitate to something that they firmly believe in. Nobody wants to go to jail and take orders from another man who thinks he's powerful. Why? You're powerful because you created an organization, you created rules, and you secured a pipeline to make money. Yeah, money does breed power. But that's how some of these leaderships get it wrong, is that they use that power only for personal gain, but never for the greater aspect of what they're doing for the people and what they really stand for. Every gang starts off with the basic concept that we're going to structure up, create law and order, organize the people, and become something big. But what is something that really, we're talking about organizations who have small numbers now. Every organization is really small numbers now. And we're talking about a few hundred, maybe close to 1,000. But you have these oppositional forces who go against these organizations for their independence, who are even bigger. That should tell you something, that lack of structure sometimes might be more important, might be more necessary. And it's necessary for people to really stand up for what they really believe in. And that is not being told what to do by another man. Not being extorted by another man. Not being used by another man. Because every Tango Blast interview that I ever watched, all of them said the same thing. Bro, we got tired of being used and forced to do this. Homies had like 12 months to the pad. Or 2 years to the pad. End up catching 10 years for poking somebody on behalf of the Texas Syndicate. This story is so similar to the Mexican Mafia with the NF with all these new SNY gangs, the Mexican Mafia with these new SNY gangs. It's all the same narrative. I think people in jail, they thrive for power. They have this lust for power, but they don't really know how to use this power. All it is a financial gang to these guys. A financial gang. But in the process, they're creating a lot more forces and a lot more of these smaller gangs that end up turning out to be bigger gangs, because of their abuse of power. So in reality, who's gonna lose in the end? The big war that's really going on, organized crime against individuals who are against organized crime. Who's really gonna win that war? Because it's starting to happen repeatedly. Now, the one thing I thought was clever is when they finally went to war with the Texas Syndicate. Obviously, everybody knows what the Texas Syndicate symbolizes. That bullhorn, the longhorn. These individuals actually recreated their name, adopting Tango Blast, adopting the same longhorn, but putting cracks in the horns. Ooh, the disrespect. The audacity of these guys. Ooh. Like, why you gonna do that to the horn, though, bro? Why you gonna do that to the bull? Bull's significant, bro. You're gonna go do that if you actually go to the Texas college football games? Are you gonna crack that bull's horns? Go ahead and try it. You see how big that bull is walking that field? You're okay. You're gonna be like one of those little clowns with the little red flag. The boop! Flying in midair. Go ahead and crack that bull's not ears, but horns. Straight up. But Tango Blast became so big that it actually became a street army. And the street army basically meaning that due to their lack of structure, these guys were able to grow and expand in big numbers. It was to the point that since Texas is right there on the border of Mexico, a lot of these individuals utilize the city of Texas for money. Out there, that state is all about hustle. And these individuals had even Mexican drug cartel connects. In 2006, over 60 kilos were found in one of the businesses that a Tango Blast owned. And that showed law enforcement how deep they're into the game. That these guys were actually so big that they started formulating tattoo parlor shops, tire shops, strip clubs, regular clubs, as fronts to move drugs and to money launder. And their connection to the Mexican drug cartels made them even that much more stronger and powerful in the state of Texas. So that goes to show you that, man, they're a threat. They're a threat to every organization that wants to try to control them. They're a threat to every organization that's organized, these big ones, that want this same kind of control over the streets of Texas. They're not going to gain it with this kind of power and this kind of expansion. They're really not. I mean, the state prison system of Texas actually identifies this group as being one of the most violent, vicious, and aggressive prison gangs that they have to deal with. And there's YouTube videos talking about their fights, showcasing their fights, their level of violence, who they go after. There's even a documentary on them of them and Mexican Mafia members just going at it. But that's what tripped me out. I was like, they were quick to identify, like Mexican Mafia members in California, they're identified just rarely, one or the other. But we're talking about 3 Tango Blasts removed 2 Mexican Mafia members. It's like, I don't think it's the same, but I might be wrong. I might be mistaken. Cause I've never really heard it like that. Like two Mexican mafia members go down there with these guys. You never really, man. Those big homies in California are not touched, very untouchable, unless they're touched by their own. And I don't mean touched like in the physical pleasure aspect either. Cause I know where you guys' minds at. It's in the gutter. It's always in the gutter. Do I like to be touched? Yeah. Was I touched in jail? No. Maybe. So what? But overall, like I said, the same narrative. It's a bunch of prison organizations abusing people who don't have power. And when these people finally rise and rebel, those kind of rebellions actually lessens the power of these organizations and actually makes these other individuals who are quick to stand up for something and stand against political powers, and they actually become more powerful in the end. So that's the moral of the story, is that I honestly think that these big prison organizations, a lot of them do become powerful. A lot of them do a lot of damage. A lot of them do gain control. But at the end, more people are getting hurt at the hands of individuals who really don't know how to manage this power. These powers you see in jail, you're just controlling prison systems. Do you think the people that own these prison systems really care what you guys do in that prison system? Or do they care about that trust fund and that bank account? Because real power is what these politicians are doing with these suits on. How they're lying to the mass people, how they're grabbing the people's votes and they're taking these votes, putting them into office, and then they're doing whatever the hell they want. They're passing whatever laws they want. And a nation has to follow that. To me, that's power. You want to know what else I think is power? Is that the members that are trained, that went through the military and got trained and are sitting in that Pentagon, and all he got to do is press one button. And nukes are going to go flying in the air across the water and somebody getting blown to smithereens. That's power. So that's what I trip out on. Like, now that I tell my prison stories and I talk about the power that I really wanted, that I got a chance to have, but I wanted more. These powerful political figures that everybody's fascinated over. Everybody loves a prison gang story, a prison organization story. Everybody's obsessed and fascinated how these guys create this kind of power. But this power, I'm pretty sure there's more powerful people in this world that just laugh at this power. Like, bro, that's nothing. I was doing that when I was a kid. Think about the power that a couple individuals had, kings back in the day that ruled nations. That's power. To me, what I think is more powerful nowadays, is when you can walk up to your homie knowing he's struggling, knowing he's starving, knowing he needs to take care of his family, and you just whisper in a couple ears, open doors for him, and he gets a union job making starting pay $28 an hour. To me, that's power. Instead of just being in a cell, writing on a piece of paper, trying to tell a bunch of members what to do, and when they finally get fed up with it, they rebel against you. Now you got a bigger problem on your hands. And that's what Tango Blast did. They fought for their independence, and they gained it, and they gained a whole lot more and created a shockwave of violence, aggression, and expansion. Because that's what happens when you oppress people. Eventually, people are going to stand up and fight back. Just like the Bulldogs did. They fought for their independence. Now nobody can control them. They can't even control each other. It's like two dogs in the kennel, bro. No matter where they're at, even if they're the same breed, even if they're brother and sister. You let the same dogs in the same kennel out, brother, tearing each other apart. But to me, I see the similarities. And sometimes I think it's more important now than ever that a man's freedom, his own free will, his right to his own independence, without having to take orders from the next man, I think is one of the most important values every man should have. You don't need to be told what to do by the next man. Who's the next man? It's okay to get advice from somebody. It's okay to learn from somebody. But for one man to walk up to you just because he feel like he's powerful in you and tell you, hey, pick up this knife and go catch 10 more years, and we'll thank you later, that's not worth living for, and that's not worth dying for. It's really not. So I do respect, how far, Tango Blast came along, and they're a force to be reckoned with. See, but that's my interpretation. I actually do support and believe in what they did. There's a lot of aspects that I disagreed with, like a lot of them can get convicted for sexual assaults, and they're still good. Yeah, I'm totally against that. Obviously against that. Unless it's committed to a sex doll, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to deal with you. Because honestly, if I had a sex doll, she would get violated. Violated. I'd have a lifetime supply of lotion. And for some reason, if I did have a sex doll, I would name it Virginia. I don't know why. It just catchy to me. It just seems slutty. So shout out to all the Tango Blasts out there who fought for their independence. Obviously, there's been a lot of individuals who dropped from the Tango Blast and started saying that they're pretty much becoming the same thing that what they fought against in the first place. But you know, that concept of fighting for your independence and standing on your own 2 feet as a man is what I think a lot of people nowadays who still want to continue this gang life and follow these gang structures really need to grasp the concept of. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It feels good to be able to be your own man without nobody telling you what to do. Your own free will. Just having a free mind. I think that's more important than just being part of a gang culture and trying to be this political dude, because as high in the hierarchy as you reach, somebody's going to come along and tell you what to do. So it's a never-ending cycle of just being told what to do for the rest of your life. I'd rather be the one telling somebody else what to do. Like, hey, Brandon, I need you to go finish this before your shift's over, and I'll sign this check for you. You know, business aspects, businessman. So with that being said, like I always say, it's one life, one chance. When they got one chance to do this right, let's get it done. Peace.